Hello and welcome back yet again to yet another episode of Archived Memories. Episode 21, I reckon this will be.
Nobody counts numbers. Numbers are stupid.
That is true. Actually, numbers are probably the worst part about this game, and by extension, this podcast. I think that all numbers should be removed.
Delete the numbers.
All right. Do we have anything to talk about before we talk about the cards?
I played Netrunner with that coworker again.
Oh yeah. Did he like it even better the second time?
He did not, because he prefers running to Corp as of 2 games he has played.
I see. So he's really, really not loving the corporation.
I think he didn't love being account siphoned, to be honest.
I'm gonna say that's a you problem. That's a you problem and not a him problem.
I disagree. Either you learn to deal with account siphon, or you don't belong in this arena.
I mean, depending on what format you're playing, you may not have to learn about account siphon at all.
Maybe if you play little wussy formats.
Yeah, well, I call snapshot format the real format because that's where the game was when it died, just as God intended.
Just because you hate all of the cards that I love.
Well, yeah, that's just because you love stupid cards that aren't fun.
I disagree. I have lots of fun with them.
Yeah, well, ultimately, who's right when everything was all said and done? That's right, this guy.
Damn, I've been shown.
You've been owned. You've been taken to the gamer zone.
Wow.
All right. Well, with that, I guess do we want to talk about cards now? Can we have an unprecedented, 2 minute, just getting into the cards?
That seems like we're not wasting nearly enough time.
That's fair. Well, let's do it anyway.
Sure, why not? To experiment. You wanna start us off?
Yeah, I will go ahead and start us off. We are now into Wayland cards. We talked about the Wayland identity last episode, but now we got some actual Wayland cards, and I am just so excited. So, first and foremost, we have Hostile Takeover, or Hostile Takeover, however you want to say that word. It is a 1.2 to advance agenda with the expansion subtype, and it reads, when you score a hostile takeover, gain 7 credits and take 1 bad publicity. And as mentioned, it is coming out of the Wayland faction. Isaac.
Mm-hmm.
Why was this agenda the bread and butter for Wayland for so long?
So, as we kind of mentioned last episode, Wayland is the money faction, and this agenda gives you money.
It does do that, doesn't it? How much money does it give you, Isaac?
It in fact gives you 7 credits. Now, by the time you spend a turn, because it's basically always you install this, you advance it twice, you score it on the same turn, you are now up 5 credits from where you were, and you have scored a point. That's not bad. That's not bad. That's some good numbers. We've talked about how numbers are bad, but those are some good numbers if you're gonna have them.
Yeah, we're actually going to kind of flip the script on all the listeners here. Gotcha, bitch. Numbers are actually good, you fucking idiot. Can't believe that you...
sitting there agreeing with us, saying like, yeah, screw numbers. No, numbers rock.
Yeah, dingus. Can't believe you fucking fell for that one. These numbers are actually pretty damn good. Because essentially what you convert this into, right, is that you are spending your turn, because as you mentioned, this is almost always going to be just a 3-click endeavor, which, in case this wasn't picked up along the way, from the last 20 episodes, corporations, with their turn, they get 3 of those. You spend your whole turn to get a point and 5 credits, which is pretty damn good.
It is good. But the old double agent here, you also take 1 bad publicity, and as the name would indicate, that's bad. Now we got bad numbers.
Yeah, so you do take one bad publicity, which we may have not talked about this mechanic up till now. Has it come into play yet at all?
I don't think so.
So we may have touched on it just in relation to, other cards relating to cards that we've talked about at this point. But for what may well be the uninitiated, just, which is everyone listening, um, one bad publicity equals one credit that the runner gets for free every run that they make for the rest of the game, assuming that it doesn't get removed.
Every run, you say?
Yes, every run. It's just a free floating credit that the runner. It's a free recurring credit essentially that the runner gets to spend, but on every run, not every turn.
I think it's difficult for people who haven't played the game much to conceptualize how good this is for the runner.
Yeah, the runner loves to have uh loves for the corp to have bad publicity. That's the one thing about Hostile Takeover is that like it kind of sucks, when Wayland scores this on you, because not only do they get the money and they get a point, additionally it opens up other things, such as the ability to res archers. It's an easy agenda for them to forfeit, for any other agenda, forfeit requiring cards, that the corporation may be packing in Wayland, and especially Corset Wayland. That's almost always going to be Archer. But what they do like about this card is that it gives them a bad publicity, which is pretty damn good. Just to maybe sort of help conceptualize it to people that might not be, as familiar with the game. The runner, hence the name, tends to run quite a bit. And so when every one of their runs is discounted by, even just one credit for one bad publicity, that can really add up when you kind of step back and look at it over the course of the game.
Yeah, that shit ain't bad.
Even if you like maybe take a conservative guess and say that from when this gets scored to the end of the game, the runner makes 7 runs, which I think would even be a relatively conservative estimate.
I agree with that.
That's still essentially 7 credits that they got off of this.
Yeah, which basically equalizes it. I will say, one of the things I very much appreciate about how they implemented bad publicity as a mechanic is that it does not at all matter when the corp is trying to tag and murder you. If I'm trying to C-source Scorched Earth you, bad publicity does not matter at all. As if I've decided that it's time for you to die, it doesn't matter what the newspapers are printing about me.
Yeah, it is interesting and nice, and just in general well designed that the punishment for bad publicity operates in a completely separate sphere than the kill win condition.
Mm-hmm.
Outside of if you're running some fucking funky ass deck that tries to kill the runner like during a run, which at that case you probably shouldn't be running stuff that gives you bad publicity.
Yes. And so for that reason, alongside, the money that this gives you, the flavor of how the bad publicity works, the balance of it, I really like this card.
Yeah, as I mentioned, this is really a bread and butter card for Wayland for a very long time. Because it does a lot of things. I think I kind of glanced over the stuff that it does, but just to sort of, tie it all up in a nice little bow. Like, this is what you get running Hostile Takeover. You get agendas, which you need to win, and in order to make a legal deck.
I've heard that.
I actually haven't confirmed it myself, but I have also heard that that's something you want to do, so I'm going to put it on the list. Just kind of out of speculation. It also is an economy card. scoring this out gets you 5 credits, as we mentioned, which is quite good.
Mm-hmm.
It's also a low barrier to entry econ card. This can really get you out of a bind because to score this out, all you need is 2 credits.
Yeah.
And depending on maybe if you're running some, maybe funkier stuff, you may not even need the 2 credits necessarily. That's kind of neither here nor there. Low barrier to entry on getting this money.
Yes. And puts you right in the range to play a hedge fund on your next turn.
Yes. So just great from an economy perspective. As I mentioned as well, this enables resing Archer, which is quite big.
Yes.
We will get to Archer here pretty soon. I reckon. Can't remember where ice comes in. Maybe not. We may not get to it all that soon. I forget what order card types go into, but we're gonna get to it eventually. But point is, Archer spoilers is a good piece of ice that you want to be able to res in Wayland, and this enables you to do that because Archer mandates that you forfeit an agenda in order to res it.
Yep. If that sounds expensive, it's because it is. But Archer, particularly before recursion went crazy, was really good.
Yes. And then, I'll say sort of last but not least, this can very easily and reliably close out a game for you. Because as was, already mentioned, it's worth agenda points, right? But kind of, circling back, maybe even coming full circle to that point, is that this will win you the game out of hand if you manage to get yourself to 6 points. Sometimes even if you're at 5 and you've not drawn into and scored your hostile takeovers yet, you're feeling pretty good.
Yeah, for sure. Nailed it. I don't have anything to add to that point. That's just correct.
Yeah. So, for all those reasons, right? Hostile takeover does a lot of good stuff.
It does things that the corp likes, which for an agenda, not always the case.
Yeah. Interestingly, and I don't know how much we've touched on this on past episodes, when talking about agendas. Generally agendas are kind of a detriment. Agendas kind of suck, right? I mean, you need them to win, but they're sort of like an NPC in a video game that you have to do an escort mission for,
For sure. They're kind of an albatross around your neck.
Yes. You got to keep them safe. You got to make sure that things line up right so that you can score them. You got to score them when the time is right. If you miscalculate and misplay, then and you fuck up, then the runner gets them, and then now they're that much closer to winning. Usually agendas just aren't that fun. They're not very saucy. They kind of suck.
Yeah. I mean, we'll go into that with the next card we talk about as well. But many agendas wind up basically being blank because their effects are such that you don't really get much out of them. Things like the accelerated beta test, although Aaron, you and I are both people who liked to say yes to the accelerated beta test and prove that we are in fact not betas. Most people were betas.
Yes, we
Things
passed
like
the
Project
beta
Vitruvius,
test.
which you would almost never over advance. It was really just a blank 3-2.
Yeah. But just to kind of just to kind of sort of put a lid on what you're saying. Most of the time agendas you just kind of ran because you had to. And you wanted to run a point spread that wasn't too where the agendas weren't taking too many of your card slots, but also where you were actually going to see them to be able to score them eventually. And usually agendas just sort of you picked whatever was going to best fit that makeup.
Yes.
And usually the effects that they had was pretty secondary.
Yeah, pretty much. And kind of as I mentioned, for a lot of decks, a 2-1 didn't fit in because it means you're density of agendas goes up, which means you have fewer not agenda cards in your deck. But when that agenda is also making you money and enabling some of your win conditions, letting you turn on, you know, some of Wayland's best ice, this is maybe more of a worthwhile trade.
Yeah. Because there were other, this was by no means the only, 2-1 that ever came out. Well, there were even at least one. I was going to say some, but there might not have been some. There was at least one 2-0 that was around even. But I feel like Hostile Takeover was, for the most part, the remained the good one of any of those.
I would say Breaking News fits that criteria as well.
Oh yeah. Let's not forget Breaking News. I guess we talked about it last episode. Yeah, Breaking News is still
Breaking News 2 was oftentimes a blank 2-1.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, I mean, you didn't really use its effect very much. You just used it to cap off your fast advance bullshit.
Mm-hmm.
While this had a good effect that you always benefited from, essentially.
Yep.
So, I mean, as far as meta discussions go, I mean, I think we've kind of capped out that the meta was really just you ran this card if you ran Wayland for a very big, chunk of the game. Did Wayland ever stop running this card?
I never stopped running it in Wayland. I wouldn't always put it in Wayland, but I always thought about it. Like, it was never this is just going back in the binder type thing.
Yeah, I don't know if by the end of the game it wasn't, as much of an auto include, but it was really an auto include for, I'd say, probably at least 75% of the game.
Yeah.
If in a Wayland deck, that is. I mean, the only deck you can put it in, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
Would we change anything about Hostile Takeover?
I'd give it better art.
That's fair. Might be a good segue into flavor here, because I also really, mechanically wouldn't change anything about Hostile Takeover. I think the way that it works is quite good. So let's just go ahead and move into flavor. How do we feel about the flavor on Hostile Takeover?
Well, I'll go ahead and read his flavor text. There are going to be some changes around here. And of course, we've got the art of very pompous looking Wall Street fat cat man.
Yeah, who's like, I can't tell if he's meant to be intimidating. I would assume so, right?
I think that's why he has a big frown and a 5 o'clock shadow.
Does he have a 5 o'clock shadow?
It might just be the lighting, but I choose to believe he has a 5 o'clock shadow.
Here's what I want to bring up, because, while talking about the card, I kind of noticed, what's the deal with the color of his hand? Is he wearing a glove? Like, why is his hand, like, blue? Like, is that just weird lighting? Because it shouldn't, like, with the lighting, his hand shouldn't be...
lighting, because, like, if you look at his suit, it changes in gradient and gets more blue going downwards, but I don't know for sure. It is odd.
Yeah, it's just weird, because his hand's not in a shadow, and even the part that isn't in a shadow is still blue. Like, the part of his hand that's more illuminated than the rest of it is still just blue.
Maybe it's a weird Firefly reference.
Maybe. What reference would that be? I'm lost.
The hands of blue dudes chasing down River Tam. Did you ever watch Firefly?
I did, but I think I've posted this controversial take in our Discord, and I'll just briefly bring it up again. But that show ages worse and worse the longer time goes on, and every facet of entertainment is infected with Joss Whedonisms.
I still have a soft spot in my heart for it. I still really like it, but you are right. Joss Whedon's sense of humor has gone too far.
It's simply gone too far. It must be stopped. Anyway, point is, art's weird. I guess I don't hate it, though. It serves its purpose.
It's alright. But I don't love it.
Yeah. I'll call it okay. Or we're going to go with okay on this flavor.
So what do we rate it?
I think Hostile Takeover is quite good. I don't think that it is an absolute, like, banger slam dunk, kind of card.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm going to give it a 4.
Totally agreed. For me to give a card 5 at this point, it has to reach down the front of my pants and like have a good rustle down there and make it a little party. But it doesn't do that. But it's very good. I think it's well designed and well balanced and touches several different mechanics in an interesting way. It's a
Yeah,
4.
yeah. I think absolutely good, great even card.
Mhm.
But not a classic is what we'll say. How about that?
I think that's reasonable.
All right. Well, let us move on, and please
Okay.
tell us what we have next here, Isaac.
Next up, we have Posted Bounty. Posted Bounty is another Wayland agenda. It's another 1 pointer, so worth 1 point, but it is 3 to score it. It has the subtype of security. Its text reads: when you score Posted Bounty, you may forfeit it to give the runner 1 tag and take 1 bad publicity. Okay, Aaron, we have talked somewhat about how Wayland likes to murder you. We, in our discussion of Sea Source, talked about, the importance of being able to land a tag to set up a scorched earth or two. Um, this you can just forfeit it when you score it. So boom, suddenly there's a tag on the runner, which makes them murderable. That seems reasonable. So why did this see so little play? Basically none, in my experience.
Well, because the answer to your question is that Posted Bounty dared to ask the question, what if breaking news, but bad?
Yeah, okay.
Because really, fundamentally, right, it's very similar in concept, similar in scope to breaking news.
Sure.
However, Posted Bounty fails where breaking news succeeds in a lot of key areas. First of which, being what you pointed out, is that it is a 1-3 and not a 1-2. As we've discussed in the past, 3 is sort of the magic number, in that unless you fast advance this out, this is where agendas have to start being put on the table before you can score them. Hostile
Sure.
Takeover, as we mentioned, you can score that out of hand whenever you please.
That's a big difference.
Breaking News as well, you could score that out of hand whenever you please. Posted Bounty, though, not the case. You do have to have this sitting on the table and with 3 advancement tokens on it. 3, again, is an important number because simply install advance on Posted Bounty does not work. That does not, sort of activate it, so to speak. In order for it to, sort of be in a spot where you can then utilize it on the very next turn, you do then have to spend an additional click to advance it. Now, is that always going to matter? Not necessarily, but it can.
Mm-hmm.
And it also telegraphs things quite a bit. Breaking news, opens up the ability to install it naked, and then on the next turn, depending on where the runner has left themselves, if they've taken brain damage or maybe they didn't draw up, it gives you the ability to just advance breaking news, and then, score it and play a scorched earth, all with your 3 clicks.
Sure.
Uh,
There's much more flexibility in how it can be played.
Yes, I was going to say exactly that. That with Posted Bounty, you're afforded much less flexibility in that regard and how you can use it.
Right. So to land with Posted Bounty, you essentially have to install it and advance it twice. You've spent a turn, and your prospective tag is on the board where it can be stolen, and you've already invested a whole turn and money into it. And so things have to go right in that the runner does not get in and get it, and then they still have to be within murderable range on your next turn when you advance it and then try to scorch them.
Yes. Now, what I will say is that as I sort of delve into why it's bad, I am kind of almost convincing myself, in that it's really actually not that bad when I really think about it.
Mm-hmm.
I think the problem is that just as a kind of kill enabler, it's just not awesome.
Yeah.
it's compared to something like just playing a sea source. This is just a little bit too unwieldy.
Right. In both cases, you're talking about a 3 card combo, which is already an ask from the corporation. Corp hand management was always a problem in this game, pretty much.
Right.
Um, and you need to get all 3 of those cards in your hand. With Posted Bounty, not only do you need to get them all in your hand, you need to then install it, advance it twice, not have it stolen, etc., etc. If the runner runs your hand and you've got a sea source in it, if they pull that sea source, you still have it. If they pull the Posted Bounty, it's gone. Now you have to find pieces again.
Yeah, it's a lot spongier
Mm-hmm.
than, because like you said, if they grab a sea source, I mean, basically all they get to do at that point is acknowledge that you have a sea source, and they may be dead soon. Save for things like imp, which may allow them to destroy it out of your hand, but for the
It
most
doesn't
part,
play by the rules.
yeah, imp does things a little different. Imp is built a little different. But yeah, no. In general, if they see a sea source, though, there's really, not generally not much they can do about it. While a posted bounty, not only can they do something about it, that something about it is scoring a point.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but yeah, posted bounty is just kind of lame. It's just kind of unfortunate. Because it's not terrible, I'll say, in kind of what it does and what it enables. But it's certainly worse than breaking news in just about every facet.
Yeah.
Because posted bounty doesn't even have like the additional sort of benefit in that it can close a game out for you. Like hostile takeover and breaking news can. But posted bounty, if you are relying on this thing for points, like that sucks. Like 3-1. Three ones are pretty garbage. I'll just kind of go out on a limb here and say that 3-1s almost universally suck.
Not terrific on the whole.
Because I mean, if you're gonna dedicate 3 advancements to something, like you gotta at least give me 2 points, or you better have a really good fucking ability, which this does not really.
Sure. I mean, the 3-1 that was most commonly actually used that comes to mind is Helahan's Arcology, which gave you an economy source.
Yeah,
Not a phenomenal one, but it enables you to improve your action economy, which, is something. This, if you're actually trying to get points out of it, does nothing for you. It's a
yeah,
blank 3-1 if you're just getting points, which is
yeah.
bad.
It's worse than blank actually because it gives you a bad publicity. So if you're not intending on using the tag, to win the game, and this isn't in and of itself winning you the game upon scoring it, it's actually at a strict detriment.
Well, I don't think that's necessarily true. When you score it, you can choose to forfeit it
Oh, it is May.
and
Yep,
tag in bad pub.
that's
And,
fair.
and and that's part of the other problem with this is that you have to forfeit the point to go for the kill. Now, most of the time, you're probably going to get that kill if you're actually forfeiting it.
Sure.
But at that point, I kind of wonder what's even the point. You're just deliberately adding punishment onto this card for kind of no reason.
Yeah, it is sort of weird that stipulation is there because breaking news doesn't have it. I mean, granted, the tags are temporary, but
Mhm.
sort of in the same sense, right? The situations are either going to be you're just scoring it for a quick point, you're scoring it to do evil kill things, or you're scoring it to win the game. So in most circumstances, I mean, does it really matter that the tags do or don't stick around? But it is kind of weird that posted bounty comes with that stipulation.
Yeah. The more I think about it, the more that feels weird to me.
Yeah, it's definitely odd, and I would agree shouldn't be that way. Um, did anybody? I mean, outside of just necessity, right? Because Wayland and Jinteki had it pretty bad in the core set as far as agendas go.
They did.
As Wayland, you kind of had to run this piece of shit, which sucked.
Yes.
And because you had to run this, so you had to run 3 of this and 3 of Hostile Takeover, and then
Yeesh.
Prio, and then Prio X, and then Private Security Forces, uh,
Boy,
probably
that's not great.
to get you where you needed to be. That's a real lame spread of agendas and agenda density.
It is. That's it's very unfortunate. Um, yeah, this has some serious problems. Okay, so kind of the natural transition of what we just talked about. How would you improve this?
Um, it is hard to say because while I do think that right, like breaking news is just sort of the better version of this card. I think it might be too strong if it was a 2-1. Because then you just have native, uh, kind of unavoidable tag to scorched people just natively out of Wayland without
Mhm.
any influence needing to be spent and without any money needing to be spent either.
Yeah.
And that's sort of a dangerous spot to be in. You can't make a kill that easy to get, right?
No. No.
Because even though it is part of the reason why we said it was bad, I mean, it does kind of need to have to be on the table for at least a turn to give the runner an opportunity to do something about it.
Hmm.
Though even if it was a 2-1, actually, I mean, in order to really enable a true kill combo, which is the double scorched, it would still need to be on the table for a turn.
Yes.
So I don't know. Maybe the answer really is just make it a 2-1.
Make it a 2-1 is a possibility. Um, I do like that. I think I would also get rid of the forfeit necessity to it. Just say when you score posted bounty, you may forfeit it to give the runner one tag and take one bad publicity. It feels like the bad publicity is enough of a potential punishment on this if your kill does not go off.
Yeah. I think that's definitely reasonable as well. Maybe both, honestly, because I mean, at that
Yeah,
point, and then that might kind of put Core Wayland in sort of an interesting position where it has 6 points that it can score out of hand, which may seem like whoa, that's a little silly, but keep in mind that it's 6 points across 6 agendas, and that doesn't win you the game. At some point, you're gonna have to score something big, so that might be sort of an interesting.
yeah,
That might put a kind of interesting flair on Corset Wayland in having that ability to kind of score all those points out of their hand.
sure. And especially if you're careful with like what other tools you or like agendas you give Wayland,
Hmm.
you don't really risk them turning into a fast advance faction because even with all of those, they still haven't reached game winning points, even if they score all of those out of hand.
Right, and then even if they import like biotic labor and stuff, you still can't score a private security force out of hand.
Exactly.
You know,
Not without
unless
like
you have
two
2 in $1
biotics.
billion. Yeah. So yeah, I don't know. Honestly, maybe if you just, I feel like it would be at that point quite good if it was just a 2-1 and then you didn't have to forfeit it.
Yeah.
I think that's fair. I think that would make it,
Worth thinking about.
yeah, worth thinking about for sure. Um, how do we feel about the flavor of posted bounty though?
Oh, you want to read the text for us?
Sure. The flavor text on Posted Bounty reads: "If some 2 cred newsy picks it up, even better. The scum could be in the alleys of Guayaquil or the slums of Boswash, not to mention off planet."
Um, I like the flavor.
Yeah, I mean, it's
Hunt me down a runner. I don't care if it looks bad. Find me a runner. I want to kill him.
yep. Just need this dude dead, and for one reason or another, you have some like cool cyber sunglasses that tell you where their art is.
Yeah. So the art. I love the art on Posted Bounty. Now, this is partially because I'm a huge Neuromancer stan, and it's
Uh,
obvious homage to Molly Millions.
yeah,
And Cyber Razor girls hunting down people for me. I'm there for it.
yeah. I will admit to some sacrilege here in that I have not read Neuromancer. But kind of regardless, I mean, it's really cool. It's a cool piece of art. We just have presumably badass, assassin chick, and you can just see the reflection, of her target in her sunglasses. And then there's, some cool cyber stuff going on. It's sort of weird though to think like perspective wise, right? So I'm looking at her and I'm seeing the cyber stuff going on. Why,
Mhm.
why do I see that from this perspective? I mean,
I mean a little bit, but I don't mind a little cyber stuff.
yeah, I mean, point is, it looks cool, right? I guess that's just the rule of cool, right?
Looks cool as shit.
Yeah. Looks very cool. I like the art as well. Even though I know we said this about a bunch of cards at this point, but even though Posted Bounty itself is by no means an iconic card, I do think the Posted Bounty art is one of the more iconic pieces of artwork.
Agreed.
I do have a buddy that I played Netrunner with way back when. Um, we never actually ended up playing it all that much, but for a long time, and I think even to this day, he has Posted Bounty the artwork as his icon on Discord. So it was kind of one of those where even though he didn't play the game very long, or at least we certainly didn't play the game very long, it was cool enough to make an impression. To where it's like, hey, I still want to use this to represent me on this program just because it's so badass.
Fair enough. But Aaron, I need you to read Neuromancer.
Yeah, I've been meaning to get. Actually, I think I still like right now. I have a copy of the audiobook saved on my computer because I did start it. I started the audiobook, narrated, I think, by the man himself, actually.
Okay, well, yeah, that's your homework. That's your homework for next time.
I will try to get around to it. I've got a lot of that on my plate. I still haven't finished Dune. I'm like probably more than halfway through Dune, but I stopped that. I need to read. I started listening to Blood Meridian. I'm probably never gonna finish that, but I need to.
Damn.
Yeah, it's just I'm in a bad way when it comes to books.
Well, get on it, nerd.
Yeah, one day. Anyway, what are we rating Posted Bounty?
I'm gonna give Posted Bounty. I want to give it a 3, but it doesn't deserve it. I'm gonna give it a 2. Like, and probably one of those points is just off of how much I enjoy the art.
Yeah. I actually am gonna give it a 3. Because I mean, even though it's one of those cards where it's like it's really not that bad. It's just there's there's just better choices. This is a cutting room floor card.
Sure,
Um,
it's a tool that's worse than your other tools that do the same thing.
yeah. And in the context of the core set, is it still also pretty bad? Yeah, but given that you have to run it anyway, it's not impossible that you score a win out of getting this on the table.
Yeah. All
But
right, fair enough. But I'm leaving my 2.
yeah, which is fair. But I think a 3 is fine. Especially since it looks so cool. So
It does look cool.
all right, well, moving on, we have a card that I will bet anyone who has ever played the game of Netrunner probably forgot existed.
I forgot about it until just now.
And that is Security Subcontract, which is a 1 influence asset out of Wayland with the transaction subtype. It is 0 to res and costs 3 for the runner to trash. And it reads: click and trash a res piece of ice. gain 4 credits.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, Isaac,
Yeah.
why did everyone who has ever played this game forget that this card existed?
Because its math is really bad. Its numbers are so bad. Okay, let's talk about this for a minute. Okay. Um, One of the basic actions that you have access to in Netrunner is you can spend 1 click for 1 credit.
Yes.
You can just do this without having to have any cards or anything. Um, so on average, like I tend to think of any card, you need the click to draw it. The corp can auto draw things, but it's like you only get one of those per turn, and you only have 3 clicks to the runner's 4. So basically, a click to draw this, a click to install it. Now you need to have a piece of ice somewhere. So it's a click to draw that. It's a click to install that piece of ice. It's maybe also credits to install that piece of ice. If
Mm-hmm.
it's the second or further, then it also costs you money to install it. So you are now at 4 clicks it's even worse than that because now you have to, once this asset is rezzed, spend a click and trash that rezzed piece of ice. Rezzed meaning it's also adding to this cost is whatever you spend to res that ice to gain 4 credits. Even if that ice is 0 credits to res, you have lost money using this card. It's so bad.
Yeah, this card is a piece of garbage. This card is doo doo.
This is not worth the cardboard it is printed on.
This card really, really sucks. Um, I honestly, I don't know, like, what they were thinking. Insert, angry video game nerd soundbite. What were they thinking? Um, it's it's mind boggling.
It's so bad.
So the only thing I can think is that this was one of their misses on like speculative, uh, like the speculative portion of the game design, right? Because a lot of
Mm-hmm.
card design and then a lot of game design, especially in a game like this, that where the idea is that it's going to continue on and you're going to release expansions and yada yada, it's gonna,
Sure.
living card game, right? Um, a lot of game design choices are speculative.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but I don't know, like, what is it that they were speculating was going to happen in the game that this was ever going to be worth anything.
I'm going to go out on a limb and say that even they were not very confident in that and that they were really just short on ideas because there's only 1 copy of this in the core set. This has just filler written all over it.
That, or they thought this card was so badass. They were like, dude, this fucking security subcontract meta in like, in like 2 cycles from now, it's gonna be so fucking sick, dude. We need to make sure there's only 1 copy of this in the core set.
Um,
And then the guy who like had that idea got like shit canned, like before the core set came out. And then like he took his notes, and then Damon Stone was like, "What? So what was? Do we know what the thing he was gonna do with security subcontract was?" And Lucas is like, "I don't fucking know."
and then they just left it in because they were
Yeah.
they were on a time crunch.
Yep, and they're like, "Well, we can't remove it now. We don't have it. We already sent the files over to the printers." Like, so, yeah, this card is staggeringly bad. As you explained, in like the best case scenario, you are spending 5 clicks to gain 4 credits.
It's so bad, and like the pedants listening to this can say, "Oh, but it improves from there because then it's really just, you don't have to do the 2 clicks to draw and install it every time. So it's just 3 clicks for 4 credits to get a new piece of ice and install it, and then click to trash it." And to them, I would say, "Shut the fuck up. You're wrong."
Yeah, this shit's still bad because there's plenty of other cards that give you more money for less clicks. Y'all ever heard of a little card called Hedge Fund? I think we've talked about it.
Or if we're just looking at assets, Melange Mining Corporation, which will come up at some point here.
Yep.
Uh, 3 clicks for 7 credits. That sounds way better than what you're getting out of this.
Yeah, this card's nonsense.
I took 3 poops today that were all better cards than this.
Yeah, I would sooner slot into my Android Netrunner deck than Security Soap Contract. Yeah, this card is nonsense. This card is absurdist. This card is an exercise in absurdist game design.
It's actually worse than Worm.
Yeah, this card is near Lynchian, and it's just fucking, in just how crazy, just how zany it is. It's zany. It's irresponsible in how terrible it is.
And you know what? Its art isn't even good.
Yeah, it's just the NAPD building. It just says NAPD, and it's not even a particularly cool building or cityscape or anything. I guess, I mean, let's just fast track this. This card sucks. Nobody ever played it. Nobody ever remembered it existed. This could be completely deleted from reality, and nobody's life would change in any capacity at all.
Yeah, the butterfly effect would not happen deleting this
Yeah,
card. Absolutely nothing would happen.
Yeah, this is the counter argument to like the butterfly effect, like philosophical idea, and that if you went back in time and just vaporized this from everybody's Netrunner card pool, reality would not change in any facet at all.
Absolutely correct.
But yeah, just going into the flavor here. You want to go over the flavor text?
If I have to. It says, quote, feed the feds our scraps and they'll come back begging for more. Richard Pelasco, VP of Cybersecurity. VP of my dick. Get out of here, nerd.
Yeah, this sucks. I don't even know what the function of flavor is. Like, what is what's a security subcontract? Why does it delete ice that I've installed on my servers, and why does it give me less money than I paid for it?
Because we're selling it to the government.
It's stupid. It's dumb. I guess let's not skip over this part though, because I guess if any card is in need of it, it would be this one. Like, how do you make this good? Like, how do you make this not doo-doo garbage?
Okay, all right, I've got it. You take this card, and instead of this card, you make a different card that does something else.
Okay. Daring suggestion. But let's say that you can't do that. Let's say that you do have to make this card usable.
Okay, all right. Here's what you do. Number one is make it not necessarily a rezzed piece of ice. Number two, make it not cost a click.
Yeah. I think it's got to maybe be. Well, no, because the cost of getting rid of a piece of ice is already
steep.
Yeah. So yeah, maybe it just does just need to be trash a piece of ice, gain 4 credits. Then it might be like okay, maybe.
Yeah.
Still probably not really, but
yeah, you're still throwing away your defenses.
Yeah, and then
especially at this point in the game's life cycle, you're not getting that ice back. It's in the garbage now.
Yeah, it's gone. It's gone forever. Yeah. So then it might be like all right, I guess. And then at least it could maybe enable some like where if you're like low on credits and you need to boost yourself back up to get into like scorched earth position, you know, you could maybe sort of use it in that capacity.
Sure, and in that regard, the click is probably still necessary because otherwise it's just like, oh, my turn starts, I have Sea Scorch, I'm gonna trash these 8 pieces of ice I have on my side of the board, and now you're dead.
Yeah, that's fair. So yeah, maybe just make it a click, and then it's any piece of ice. So
yeah, maybe if it also gave you more money.
Yeah, maybe like click and trash a piece of ice to get like 5, maybe. I don't know. This card blows. 0 out of 10, right?
0 out of 10. If I could give negatives, I'd give negatives.
Yep, I'm with you on that one, brother. All right. Let's move on. Please tell me what we have next.
Okay, next up we have aggressive negotiation. It is our first Wayland operation. It costs 1 credit to play. It reads, play only if you scored an agenda this turn. Search R&D for 1 card and add it to HQ. Shuffle R&D. And it is 1 influence. Okay. Aaron, we've talked about how Wayland, particularly when they're trying to murder you, which is really their win condition, um, they need combo pieces. Sea Scorch is a 3 card combo, and particularly early in the game's life cycle, 3 card combos are difficult. This lets you pull pieces of that combo into your hand. So, why does it still suck?
Yeah, that's a good question. My question, if I had been doing the card introduction, I would have asked you why this took second place as far as cards that everybody forgets was in the game. Because this is another one where I see it, and I'm like, oh yeah, that card existed, didn't it?
It sure did.
Um, which reading it right, it doesn't sound that bad.
Sure, yeah.
Because the thing is, right, all you have to do is score an agenda. So especially if you're Wayland, you might get cheeky and you could throw like a hostile takeover in a remote, and then you could score it next turn, and then use this to fish out your second scorch or like a sea source or something.
That seems like a thing that could possibly happen.
Um, but the reason why it's still bad is because do you really need to do that? And is doing that worth any of your deck slots? No.
Yeah.
Like, you could just play the game and you'll get your cards.
Mm-hmm.
Now, there's the argument where it's like, okay, well, what if you don't, right? Like, what if you shuffle and, the cyber gods hate you, and literally the last 3 cards in your R&D are score, sea source,
Mm-hmm.
and it never gets shuffled again. Well, even in that circumstance, just playing and winning the game normally is still preferable to using this card, probably.
I think that's probably accurate. Also, the job that this card does is the same thing that you get out of Project Atlas. However, Project Atlas is also a 3/2. It's an agenda, which means that, you're filling agenda slots with your deck. And if you don't need to pull your combo pieces out, you don't have to. It's not just taking up space in your hand and your deck if you happen to draw into your combo pieces.
Yeah, Project Atlas was definitely one of the first examples, because I want to say that Project Atlas was definitely in the first cycle of data pack expansions, but
Mm-hmm.
I want to say that it was relatively early in the Genesis cycle as well. Um,
Yeah.
I guess we'll end up finding out whether that's true or not. Steve, you can fact check me here. Can throw up a little blurb, letting me know how soon into the Genesis cycle Project Atlas actually was. But it seemed like an early example of a card that they were like, "Yeah, our bad. Let's go ahead and fix that concept."
We can do better.
They it seemed like they sort of killed 2 birds with 1 stone, right? They looked at it and they were like, okay, what do we need to fix with Wayland? Their agenda pool sucks, and aggressive negotiation is a decent effect, but that card is not worth it. Okay, let's just make Project Atlas,
Yeah. Yeah.
and we'll just real quick fix both those problems.
Yep. Yep. They immediately saw the issue and fixed it. Shame they couldn't do that with security subcontract. Actually, probably not, because it's just bad design space.
Yeah. But yeah, that's really all you need to know about aggressive negotiation, is that nobody ever played it, and the reason why nobody ever played it is because Project Atlas is just better at doing what it does.
Yes.
Yeah, it's just not worth the deck slot to have a card that can go get you 1 card if you're able to play it on the same turn that you score an agenda, which is a little bit too much of an ask.
Mm-hmm. Yep. And Project Atlas, with the hosted power counter, can be spent whenever.
Whenever you want.
So yeah, this is stinky. Um,
Yeah, it's not
how
good.
how would you make it better?
Um, that is an interesting question because none of what it does is so abjectly offensive.
Mhm.
It's not like a miserable card by any means. It's not a security subcontract by any means. But
Yeah.
it is bad, and it's not worth running, and was never worth running essentially. And so it's in this weird spot where it's like, okay, what can I change on it to make it worth running? I mean, you and not make it overpowered, right? You certainly can't just remove the play only if you scored an agenda this turn, like caveat completely, because that would probably
Mhm.
just be too strong. Because you could just go get whatever you want whenever you want. Then this just becomes a second copy of whatever, or an extra copy, excuse me, of whatever you need it to be, which is probably too strong. Um,
Yeah, probably. It's I don't know. I feel like it's kind of a dumb question. The same as as security subcontract, because how would you make this card better? You print Project Atlas instead.
yeah, FFG, they obviously knew the answer to the question, which was to just make a better card that kind of fixed two issues, and this was one of them.
Hmm.
So whatever. I don't care anymore. How do we feel about the flavor?
Um. Well, who read the last one?
You, I think. I don't
Go
know.
for it then.
The flavor text on this one reads, "I believe you'll find the terms quite favorable." I mean, it's fun. I think the art and the flavor text is fun. It's
Okay,
amusing.
I unironically love the art, especially because like the gun is so cartoonish looking, and it's
It is a very weird. It is just a very like person who has possibly never actually seen a gun and has only ever had one described to them. Drew this, but absolutely whoever drew that gun has no idea how firearms actually function in any capacity.
uh, but it's still hilarious. Like I love that the gun is as cartoonish as it is, and it's
Yeah,
just man signing away his life or whatever. I do adore the artwork from a comedic perspective.
it is. It is funny, and he's got the little bead of sweat dripping from his part in
It
his hair.
the really bad part.
Yeah, it is quite funny. It is a very amusing card and amusing flavor, which is actually kind of unfortunate that it was wasted on this card.
Yeah.
So I do like the flavor, or at least the art. I don't know about the function to flavor. Like I don't know why this would have anything to do with fast tracking something that you're like researching.
Agreed.
But eh. What are we rating this?
This one gets probably a one from me, and that point is mostly for the art.
Yeah, I'm in the same way. I'm giving it a point. Not even necessarily just for the art, which is very good, but even just because this is definitely not as bad as Security Subcontract. So
That's true.
I can't give that a 0 and then also give this a 0. Like this at least has to get a 1 just to keep it
This
out
is
of that
closer to a
territory.
two than a zero.
Yeah, for sure. Um. So yeah. All right. This is normally the part where I say like, "Oh, could we do another card?" But I'm going to take the reins and I'm going to say we're going to do another card because do you know how many episodes it's been that we've actually covered 5 cards? A lot.
Let's do it.
We've been at 4 for a very long time, and I think we need to break out of that.
Well, what do we have next?
Next, we have Beanstalk Royalties, which is another operation. It is 0 to play. It has the transaction subtype. It reads gain 3 credits, and it is a single influence out of Wayland.
Mm.
So, Isaac, why was this card so good, but only good out of Wayland?
Because for Wayland, this card reads gain 4 credits.
Yes. For Wayland, it reads B hedge fund.
Be hedge fund, but let me play you from 0 credits.
Yes. Yeah, so this is a card that is just all Wayland all the time. I don't know if really there was ever a circumstance where you looked at running this outside of Wayland. I don't know. Maybe you did. Like, because one influence is certainly enticing, and 3 credits for 1 click even is still not terrible.
I think I did run this in other decks occasionally early on. I think mostly Jinteki because Jinteki had legendary money problems in the first cycle or two.
Yeah.
Um, but it wasn't great outside of Wayland, but it was amazing in core Wayland.
Yeah, in core Wayland, Beanstalk Royalties is awesome. Definitely, definitely an auto include for a good long time, I would say.
Sure. I mean, if you we talk, I know we already talked about Wayland building a better world. Um, but if that identity just read include 3 extra hedge funds
Yeah.
in your deck, that would
Right.
already be pretty good.
Yeah.
But it's 3 extra hedge funds, and then your hedge funds are all worth 1 more, and then other transactions. Yeah, it's good. It's good.
Yeah. It is like, um, this really this is what really solidifies just Wayland being a super hard corporation to keep down.
Mm-hmm.
Um, because I had already mentioned that Hostile Takeover was great, just because its barrier to entry for getting you some big bucks was low. How about Zero? How about a zero barrier to entry?
Zero's a good barrier to entry. Oh no, I've just been account siphoned down to 0. Beanstalk royalties, click for a credit, hedge fund. Now I have 10.
Yeah, Wayland was almost. I mean, it didn't really end up being that way, but like Wayland at times almost felt like the I don't care about siphon spam
Mm-hmm.
faction. Just because they could so easily recover from it. And if there was one faction that was totally cool with you uh, having tags, it was obviously Wayland.
For sure. And, much later on, Wayland got, what was that card called? Secure Vault.
Oh, that weird like anti siphon thing that just like didn't work and nobody ever played at all.
Yeah, that's the one.
Yeah, cool. That was a great. I can't wait for us to get to that one. Um, wasn't that the one where they printed it and it was like supposed to be an anti-siphon tool, and then basically the general consensus was this is fucking stupid, and then like in the next pack they made like a better anti-siphon tool that was like way better.
Yeah, there was a lot of complaining going on about Siphon at the time, and so Lucas just was like, "Fine, here. There's like 3 tools to fight account Siphon. Stop complaining at me about it."
Please stop sending me emails about a cow siphon. But yeah, no. Just I guess to kind of rein this back in, Beanstalk Royalties is just so good out of core Wayland. Um,
Not only that, but Beanstalk royalties is directly related to why Wayland was good.
yeah, a huge part of them just being able to not just be rich but stay rich. Because as I mentioned, you could siphon them down to 0 credits. You could
Mhm.
force them down to 0 credits, by making them have to res Hadrian's Wall.
Mhm.
But your victory in getting them down to 0, 1, 2, whatever credits was almost always quite short lived.
Yes.
Because between Beanstalk royalties, hostile takeover, and then just your standard stuff like hedge fund, and then whatever other econ cards you kind of want to throw around. They were
Restructure.
Yeah, restructure. They were able to just bounce back so quick that it almost didn't matter.
Yep. Pretty much.
So, and Beanstalk royalties, not was just part of that, but was a very big part of it.
Turns out money helps you win games.
Yep, sure does. Now outside of Wayland, though, um, yeah, not so good, and not
Limited
generally,
application.
yeah, not generally worth looking at. Unless it's as you mentioned, Corge and Techie, where it's like, please God, somebody give me money.
Yeah.
Trying to think if I ever tried to run this anywhere else. Not really. Yeah, it was just I don't think I ever tried to put a cheeky beanstalk anywhere.
I mean, the problem is like 3 credits out of a deck slot that's also costing you an influence is not nearly as good.
Yeah. Um. Yeah, this is a sort of interesting card in that aspect. In that, out of Wayland and really specifically Core Wayland, right? It's so good and so strong, and really such like a cornerstone of their faction. But then on the flip side, it's just really not worth looking at in any other faction. While I feel like most cards that are this powerful or sort of on this end of the power curve um, tend to be good in other factions as well, or at least worth looking at.
Yeah,
And so
agreed.
it's sort of interesting that this is kind of the antithesis of that. It's very good in faction, not really worth considering out of faction.
Yeah. Even dropping it down to 1 influence, having it that low, it's not really very tempting.
Yeah. Like other powerhouse cards that we've talked about, um, you know, almost universally, not that I would say Beanstalk Royalties, right, is a powerhouse card, quote unquote, right? Like this isn't, fucking, blasting the windows off of your fucking out of your game shop or anything when you play it down. But most other like good and powerful cards usually come with a discussion where we say like, oh yeah, and you can influence it in this sort of HB deck, or it's worth
Mhm.
looking at if you're running this kind of Jinteki deck, or so on and so forth. But B-Side Royalties just doesn't have that facet. Like it's good out of Wayland, and that's almost it.
Yep.
While other stuff like obviously, Toll Booth, right? Great ice card. Two
Mhm.
influence, really worth looking at in other factions. San City Grid, great powerful card. That's even at high influence, that you could argue, sneaking into like an HB deck and really catching somebody by surprise. Um,
Sure.
Scorched Earth, classically imported into NBN, stuff like that. And so it is interesting that this does not have that at all.
I will say it feels to me like, for the most part, Wayland cards did not get imported into other factions very much, with the exception of Scorched Earth into NBN.
Sure.
I feel like very like Wayland cards got borrowed by other factions the least.
Yeah, I would say that's a fair assessment. I think maybe that idea gets sort of morphed and skewed by the fact that Scorched Earth got thrown around in probably every faction, right? Obviously,
Mm,
mostly NBN, but like Scorched out of like a Jinteki deck is not unheard of, and can definitely surprise some people, especially when you already have like Snare in house and stuff. Um,
sure, I feel like it was more often punitive Counter-Strike that Jinteki would lean towards if they were going for some meat damage murdering.
yeah, fair point, but anyway, point is, I think that idea gets sort of skewed by Scorched, being so routinely seen outside of Wayland, while most every other card just wasn't.
Yeah.
Um, Wayland was just a very like insular faction. Like their cards were good for them, and really generally not good for most other people. Not really good for anybody else, at least in the core set.
Yeah.
Um, but
Well,
yeah, I wouldn't change anything about Beanstalk. Despite my mentioning that it's kind of odd, and that it, doesn't get used anywhere else and really isn't worth looking at anywhere else, I think
mhm.
it's fine that way, and I think it's right where it needs to be.
Not every card needs to be like an export card into other factions.
Yeah.
Nobody ever ran Sundew outside of Jinteki, but
Yeah. Um, trying to think if that's true or not. Was there a Gagarin space? Did they ever try that? Or Gagarin
I
Deep
think they
Space?
preferred turtlebacks.
Oh, yeah, that's true. That's fair. Fair enough. Yeah. So I don't think I'd change anything about Beanstalk. I think it's fine.
Same. I don't think I would either.
Now, how do we feel about the flavor?
Well, I'll go ahead and read that. The new Angeles space elevator, better known as the Beanstalk, is the single greatest triumph of human engineering and ingenuity in history. Beanstalk makes Earth orbit accessible to everyone for a small fee. And it's pretty good.
Yeah, it's got a picture of the titular space elevator.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
The stuff goes up, and Wayland collects the toll.
yeah, this is sort of maybe if you could extrapolate the idea that like a Elon Musk sort of entity were to come into play,
Sure.
right? That gets us you know a sort of like accessibility into orbit and into space. It would certainly be monopolized very or not monopolized but monetized very heavily. um,
Mm-hmm.
Obviously, even in a situation like that, right? The implication that is even this, very great monumental thing for, humankind is, really just built with the intention of, making money.
Gotta get rich.
Yep. Gotta get those dollars, those $3, those 3 credits, four if you're Wayland. Art's pretty cool though. It's not like super exciting, but I think that it's like cool enough.
Sure. I like I like my cyberpunk with a little industrial in it, and this has that.
Yeah, this has definitely got a sort of grungy feel to it. I'm also a sucker for this might be a weird thing to say. I don't or maybe it's not. I don't know. But I'm also a sucker for I just like that there's that HB advertisement there. Right? So it's like, hey, this is a Wayland card. This is our Wayland thing. But like, hey, like here's an advertisement for HB. Like I don't know. It makes the world feel congruent, I guess.
Yeah,
So I don't know. I like that for what it's worth.
fair enough. I agree.
All
So
right.
what do we rate it?
I think Beanstalk has to get a 4 from me.
I think I agree. I was originally thinking about, being a hipster and giving it a 3. My justification was going to be, oh, I mean, this is a good, well-designed card, but like it's useless out of faction. But I kind of as we mentioned, I don't really have a problem with that.
Yeah. This is just it's such a simple, unassuming but hardworking little card. You know, this guy Beanstalk, he just gets the job done,
Hmm.
and you got to give him credit for that. You got to give him credits for that. You got to give him 3 credits and 4 if you are playing Cores at Wayland for that.
Brilliant.
But with that, I will, allow us to stop talking about Netrunner cards now.
Thank heavens he's been holding me hostage for weeks.
Yep. Feeding time and podcast recording time. I've discovered if I just make those the same time, then Isaac is much more agreeable when I come down to the net dungeon.
I'm very cooperative if I've been recently fed.
Yep. So, do you have any parting words for our listeners before we go offline here?
Yes. Don't take tags, folks. You'll find out next episode why.
Oh boy, I sure can't wait. Um, bye.